Hello, everyone. My name is Magdalena Zamojska, and I'm a user researcher. And today I would like to speak about user research and design, especially for two types of projects, fixed scope and fixed time. And of course, we are talking about agile delivery. And I must say that I'm extremely happy that I saw so many presentations focusing on design and design thinking and user research. During these 2 days, I heard about the value of user research, and I must say that it makes me happy and satisfied, because what I see many often in my work is that we need to convince that the value of research, about the value of user research, and we need to convince that the job we are doing is useful. My talk will be about user research, about design thinking. Today we heard about design thinking, so I will refer to the same concept, and about two types of projects, fixed scope and fixed time. In the beginning, when I applied, when I sent my abstract to this conference, I worked for a different company, and I wanted to speak about one case study. But as I changed my job and now I work for Lufthansa Systems, I decided to base my talk on different examples. So that's why I will be talking about fixed scope project, but also comparison to fixed time projects. And of course, we are talking about Agile. I'm trained as a cultural anthropologist, and I did my research and I studied in many different countries. So here you can see the map. Why I'm showing this map? Because I think it's extremely important to understand that there might be different conditions in different countries. Even though that we are developing global products, it means that they need to fit into the needs of our users, and I need to be there. I cannot do research from my office. Of course, to some degree, I can do some background research, but still, if we are talking about user research, I need to be there where my users are. So what's user research about? When I've joined my previous company, I was working for a software house, and in our office there were almost 300 people, mainly developers, and I was the first user researcher ever in that office. So when I started, the people came to me and asked, what's user research about? And I showed them a couple of pictures from my previous projects. So here you can see one lady from a local museum from Finland. These pictures were taken as part of my doctoral research. So as you see, I talked to them, I interviewed them, and I'm exactly where they are. So my doctoral project was about small museums in Finland, and as you see, these museums are like small, cute cottages run by volunteers. So the idea was to investigate whether we can develop new technologies, digital technologies for them. As you know, Finland is very pioneering if we are talking about digital technologies. The right to have access to internet is considered as a universal right. So everyone is having an access to internet. People are using technologies, and people are very confident and literate, digitally literate. So I needed to find out whether it's possible to develop digital tools for them. But as you can see, this kind of museums, sometimes there is no electricity in this museum. So it's difficult to design and develop let's say, collection management system for an institution if there's no electricity in that place. What was important in I lived for many years in Finland, and what was important for me, what I learned from living and working in that country is something that's called participatory design. It means that we are designing something, we need to involve people who are going to be influenced by the new solution. So participatory design originates or has its origin in Scandinavia, and it's considered as a very efficient way of designing and developing new tools. So when I moved back to Poland, I worked for a National Institute for Museums and Public Collections, and our goal was to design or buy or develop new collection management system so that the collection of of museums are available online. So here you can see my colleagues work in a museum. They are digitizing collections with the purpose of putting them online. So here you can see digitized object, and here you can see a detail. So it means that we needed to do in a the quality of these digital files needs to be extremely high, so that we can investigate the objects in the future and also share knowledge about them. So what I did was I was responsible for the research strategy in that project, and what we did, we visited all the museums participating in that project, almost 30 institutions, and we wanted to understand how the process of digitization is organized. So how these people work together, what are their main problems, what are the processes, and what are their needs in terms of sharing their knowledge, because curators, conservators are extremely competent people. And also we work with the audience, with people like you. We wanted to find out how the new portal, how it should look like, what features it should have. So these co-designing practices were also involved in this project. In other projects I work on product development. So here you can see smart jar. It's just a jar with an application. So you can't imagine how people feel passionate about jars, how many stories you can hear, and the different contexts of use. In this project, you can see it's from UK. We work from NHS, Clinical Commissioning Group, and we wanted, as you can see in this picture, a lot of documentation is still in a paper form, and for sure you know this problem that when you visit your general practitioner or you go to the emergency department, they don't know your medical history because it's stored in different IT systems. So the goal of this project was to combine data, medical records from these different IT systems and display them in a one solution. And the company I work for, they had this online application. And so our goal was to integrate data from 11 IT systems and display them in one place. What was interesting about this project, it was extremely difficult. You can imagine that integrating data from different IT systems, and we are talking about medical data, is extremely difficult from a technical point of view. And also it was difficult how to understand the needs of these people, because the new system was going to replace some of these paper-based practices and also some of the current systems. And what was interesting about this project, that when I heard that I'm going to work on that project, I asked my colleagues, developers, architects, what do they know about this project? What's my role going to be? Whether they know something more, some background information about it. And they were surprised that I, as a user researcher, I'm going to join it because it's only about integrations. We need to integrate data and display it. So even within the organization in the beginning, there was no understanding what my role is supposed to be. I will tell more about this project later on. And now I'm working for Lufthansa Systems. We provide IT services for Lufthansa, and our product is, I'm working on one of the products. It's called Lido, a flight planning application. So here you can see a very old-fashioned system. This is the old system. We are working on a new one. Here you can see the flight list and the flight plan. So I'm working on a flight planning application, but the end user is not a person who is planning a trip, but is a person who is planning the flights for the airlines. So we have almost 60 airlines around the world using the system. If you are flying in Europe, almost half of the flights is, almost 50% of the flights is planned with Lido application. So if you are going to the airport today, you can think that maybe the plan is presented or is planned with this application. And what they do, how do they do it? It's extremely complex process because they need to take into account a lot of parameters, for example, the aircraft type, how many passengers are on the board, the weight, the weather, of course, the time they need to arrive, weather conditions, all this information need to be put into the system, and then the system propose different scenarios, flight scenarios, and optimize the route. So what I'm doing in this project is I try to understand what kind of applications they are using, the dispatchers, flight planners, and what kind of steps might be replaced with a new system, because we are planning to automate some of these steps. So it's extremely complex, extremely difficult in terms of the domain is extremely complex, and I must say that I still don't know anything about aviation, so I'm still learning about it. So what about user research in Agile projects? I was like reviewing the projects I work on and wanted to find out whether they were Agile or not. And I also talked to my colleagues. Some of them said, yes, our project was Agile, and some of them, no, it's an iterative waterfall, or it's waterfall. So actually, I couldn't decide whether the projects were truly Agile or not. So I decided I tried to find out what was the like values or principles that underpin all of these projects, something that was shared by them. So I think that the values were the most important. So even if we say that some of the projects were not truly Agile, these values were extremely important for us. So what's the role of user research in any project, and Agile in this case? So I tend to think that user research is about providing reliable and new information about users. So I think it's easy to remember and also easy to understand that my role is to provide insights, something new information, something that we don't know, something that you don't know in the project. So that's why I think that even if you don't have user researchers on your project, you are still doing it because you are trying to get new information and reliable information about your users. In many projects, user experience designers, business analysts, requirements engineers are collecting requirements, and actually within that process, they are trying to get new information. So how to incorporate user research into your Agile project if you are working on such a kind of project? Today you heard about design thinking approach, and I think it's good to apply it to project as well. So you can think about your project that in your work you are going through these 4 phases. So first you need to understand what's the context, what the client is trying to achieve, how big is the new system going to be. So you try to get insights into the problem. Then you define area of focus, try to collect or build better understanding of the scope. Then you develop potential solutions. So we think that you have different scenarios. You might develop this or that. You are creating epics or maybe stories. And then you propose some of the solutions. And also, for example, you might do it at a very high level, very general level. And also this kind of process might be done by a very, very small Scrum team that they think about different types of solutions, for example, in terms of technologies, what kind of technologies might be used to build a piece of software. And then you validate it as part of the delivery. You might see this today. So what's different in this representation is that you have this empathize piece here. It means that you need to put your emotions also and empathize with your end users. And I consider it also maybe as a part of the process that is called this discovery. You can in this representation you can see that there are different relations between different steps of this process. And here it's an extreme version. If you want to read more about it, how to solve problems applying design thinking, user experience, human-centered design on any creative process from scratch, I recommend to do it. And I refer to this article. So here it's from this article. I don't want to speak too much about it. I just want to show you that if we have this double diamond, user research actually is the most important part, or when I'm needed, is this discovery. When we are trying to empathize and also discover the problem, understand how the users are going to use our solution, what are the problems, what are the jobs, what do they need to do to achieve their goals. And then, again, my role is extremely important when we need to validate certain solutions. So I need to, once we have some kind of proposals, we might have prototypes, wireframes, or low fidelity mockups or high fidelity mockups. I go back to them and validate with them. So in the beginning, in the discovery phase, and then when we are validating ideas. So when you think about your project, for example, let's say 6 months, and you do it in an agile way, you might have different stages of this double diamond, of these phases, and also you might have them a couple of times. So how to combine it? How to do it if you want to do research in your agile project, and if you want to incorporate it? So what's important is to have a strategy. I don't mean by strategy something that is very huge and that is a huge document that defines everything. It's just it might be just a couple of slides or just a couple of sentences describing what I want to achieve, what kind of techniques I can use, what do I know about the users, more or less about the scope, like basic information I need to know about the project and my approach, whether I have time to do really deep research or only collect insights, whether there are already user researchers on the projects, how much information I can get from the client. So it defines my approach towards this project. And the framework. So it means that I need to build certain steps and to inform the project manager, product owner, how I'm going to implement the strategy into the process. So how we do it? So first we have this empathize and define. So if you are having a fixed scope project, when you start with discovery, this phase might take, let's say, 8-10 weeks. If the project is extremely complex, extremely difficult, or just a couple of weeks, 2-4 weeks. So it's not very long. And for example, when we started this project for the healthcare, we got almost 200 pages of requirements. And specifications was written by professionals and also by the whole team of doctors and nurses, healthcare professionals. So they knew what they wanted to get, and the specification was written, of course, very well. But when we started organizing meetings with our clients, we understood that actually we don't know how to, and we had a product. We didn't know how to take these requirements, translate them into epics and stories, to tailor our solution, to customize it, to deliver the final solution. So we started with workshop with our clients, with the project team, and also with healthcare professionals and nurses, to rewrite the specification, to write user journeys, and also to understand it from the point of view: who are the users, what do they want to achieve, why do they want to use the new system. And what was interesting, that the specification was extremely detailed, but actually we found out that we don't know how they are going to log into the system. How are they going to use it? We knew that there are healthcare professionals from emergency departments, from acute care units, but how do they log it? So I'm showing this picture because you can see that here is a so-called shared workstation, mobile shared workstation, and you can see 4 people using the same computer, but only one can log into. And they do it because healthcare professionals, when they make the medical decision, very often they consult it with somebody else. So almost every time when they make a complex decision, they consult it with somebody else. So here you can see the environment. So it might be very hectic. They might not have time to log in. For example, in the emergency department, when somebody is coming from the car accident, they don't have time to come to the shared workstations and log in with the hands covered with blood to log in and to look at the patient records. They are saving lives. They have a couple of minutes to do it. So they ask their colleagues, for example, to check some details. So how to solve this kind of problems? So even the specification was very detailed. We didn't know this kind of details, and they're very crucial if we are talking about the IT system. So these are the things we did during the discovery phase, and the next one. So we just went to all of these services and investigated how do they use current IT systems, and why, and what are their needs in relation to this new system, plant system. And we went back to the client and looked again at the requirements and wrote stories that were connected to our personas, to our to real, let's say, real people. In the next stage, it's about generating ideas, proposals, and potential solutions and prototyping. I put them together because I don't want to go through each step. I think it's enough. So, for example, in in Lufthansa, when we are working on a new solution, new applications, we decided to work in the same way, and we are developing prototypes, and we are showing them to the client to collect the feedback. So we also involve people in the process of research and design as well. And of course, if you are working in a company on a product in this company, it's not fixed scope project. But I'm showing it to demonstrate that we can incorporate. It's exactly the same process as we do in fixed scope. We generate certain proposals, ideas, and we validate with users. And we can also use this. We use this case, like creating prototypes and doing research, to incorporate our clients into this process. And I must say that they're extremely willing to collaborate, and they want to share the experiences with us, and also we can just do research with them. And it's about validation. So if you have a researcher on the team, or you do this approach in your project, you have a chance to validate whether you are wrong or not. And it can save you a lot of time, a lot of money. And for example, in this project, how we did it, you can see prison and visitor center. So in this project, we were developing a new online system for getting help with the cost of prison visit. If you have a family member who is in prison, you might be eligible to get some kind of financial support for your travel to the prison. And before, this project was completely on a paper, so you need to fill an application, attach your tickets, and send it to the office. And then of course, you waited a couple of weeks to get your money back. So this new online system was much faster, much quicker. You just went through this a couple of steps, attached pictures or scanned documents, and could get money back in a couple of days. But you can imagine that we are talking about public services, so they must be. We need to develop them in a way that everyone can use them. So how to do it if there are people who might, for certain different reasons, they might not have an access to the internet, or their skills are limited, or the current situation is complicated, but still they need to be able to get this service, be able to use this service, get help. So we proposed that the same. They might get support from a call center, so they just call the number, because at this moment we also will find out that at this moment, if they are having some problems, for example, with online applications, they just want to call somebody and talk to a person who might help them. So we propose certain scenarios, how this problem, what kind of information they should get from the caseworker, and what kind of questions caseworkers should ask them to go through this process, and also to help them. So we validated in that visitor center. It was extremely tough to do it on site, but we succeeded, and we validated whether the online, with this call center, this call number is, the scenarios are working for them or not. So what are the benefits of getting reliable of user research? It's like getting reliable information. So you can use this information in the beginning of your project to define the scope, and also to clarify what you need to develop, and also get reliable information about about the solutions you are developing. You can validate it. And also the second one is stakeholder engagement. As I said in the beginning, this participatory approach is extremely useful. So if you are planning to do research, do it in a way that you can get as much benefit from it as possible. So for example, with our clients, of course, they are research participants, but at the same time, they are our clients. So we need to know what we can promise them, what we can offer them, so they are not disappointed after some time. So for example, what's the difference between collecting requirements? When you collect requirements, you go there, do the workshop, then go back and think that, for example, you might develop solutions that will not satisfy all of the needs. And if you don't communicate it back, they might feel disappointed. With user research, the situation is different, because you as a researcher, you need to inform them how you are going to use the outcomes, and you need to give them feedback. So if you are planning to involve your clients, it's extremely powerful technique to do it. Do research with them, because you can design really good solution with them, and people want to use things that they had a chance to give their opinion, and also shape the final solution. But also don't promise too much, because they want to be involved, and you might not be able to organize tens of workshops around Europe or world to visit them. So what are the recommendations? I showed you like summarize one project from the healthcare. It's like challenge fixed scope projects. I've never seen a good specification that describes all the needs of users, because usually it's written in a form that it doesn't include personas, detailed descriptions of users, their needs, and there's no answer how these needs are going to be answered. So if you're in a fixed scope project, start with your clients and with user research, and try to ask good questions and convince them about why you need to find out the answer to these questions. And you can do it by involving this design thinking. Just when you are planning this kind of project, you can try to map it and think where are the stages, like discovery, when like defining certain solutions, prototyping, and validating. And then you can involve user researchers at different stages. But of course, you need to also focus on value of Agile and user research, and you need to be able to convince your clients why are doing this. If you don't have a user researcher or an Agile consultant because you are working in a smaller organization, in a smaller team, of course you can do it in many different ways, but just try to show them the value, organize a couple of workshops, bring them some outcomes, and they will feel convinced. Sorry. Also, what's important is to base your project on reliable information. Sorry. Thank you. if there is something that you don't know, you need to find out. And I consider user research as a small puzzle. I don't think that you can solve all the problems with user research. It's useful, but it's not solving all of the problems. And in many organizations, there are people who are experts, subject matter experts, and you need to make use of the knowledge and skills. And in this, you can do it by deploying participatory design, participatory techniques. And about research, I encourage you to do research strategically. Don't do like kind of research that, okay, now we are testing something and now we are doing something like interviewing people. Because if you do you are wasting your time and time of your informants. It's important to incorporate it into the whole project. And also, last but not least, is to participate and collaborate. I've been talking about it a lot, and I think this value of Agile is extremely important, and I think that user research can help you with that, because we have a lot of techniques, and we love our job usually, and we know how to do it, how to participate with people, how to observe them, how to interview, and how to co-design certain solutions with them. And here are some, if you are interested, I talked to my colleagues, and also we wanted to collect some of the books you might find interesting if you would like to hear more about, learn more about service design. So here, How to Have Your Cake and Eat It Too. This is service design doing, and service design from insights to implementations. These are very good, well-written books. And also, this one, I must admit, the service design po polsku, I haven't read it because it's very new. I know the author. It's like 2 weeks, it was published 2 weeks ago. And also badania jako podstawa projektowania user experience. I know that Iga was presenting last year, so there are some recordings on the conference webpage. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, just please keep in touch and contact me.